All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Built on Trust, how DevOps Center and Copado Robotic Testing bring quality to every Salesforce release. Now, today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Salesforce and their partner Copado and produced by SmartBrief. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm so happy that I get to be your moderator today because we are taking a deeper look at why quality is not just a phrase, a throwaway term. It is actually the foundation of successful delivery. So, for admins, for developers, for testers, for release managers, adopting structured tools like DevOps Center is already a major step towards that scalable and repeatable processes, right? This is what we think about all the time is we need to not just do it once, we need to be able to repeat it, we need to be able to scale and grow. But without testing built directly into the pipeline, speed can quickly turn into risk. So we need to maintain that focus and that attention on quality. Today, our expert presenters are going to share actionable insights and strategies that will help embed that quality into every deployment, ensuring that your velocity, that your speed and reliability, consistency, scalability, all of those important things are going hand in hand. You're not sacrificing the one for the other. This is going to be such an interesting conversation. I cannot wait to dive in. So I'm going to start out with just a few housekeeping points. We'll get through them very quickly, and then we'll get this show on the road. We got lots to do today. Let's start out with a little bit of a tour of your audience console. We're going to wander through the console together, and I'm going to have you wander on over with me to the right-hand side of the console. There are three tabs there: Chat, Docs, and Q&A. Let's start out in the Chat tab. I want you all to say hi, say hello, tell us how you're doing. Vrej, I see you. Good to see you, Tim. We've got Steve. We've got Marteza and Adam, Jason, David. We got a whole awesome crew here. Keep those highs and hellos coming in. Let us know how you're doing. What are you up to today? How's the weather where you're at? What are you having for lunch? Whatever you got in your brain. But then as we get started in our session and we're chatting with our speakers here, we want you guys to be connecting with each other, sharing ideas. Hey, this worked for me. This didn't work for me. I like that thought. That's resonating. So please feel free to engage in that conversation. That really is the best part of these webinars, is having those collaborative learning experiences with our speakers and between all of you. Sandra says, doing super well. Excited for today. Yes, Sandra, bringing the energy. I love that. All right, so that's all happening there in the chat tab. If you go two little hops over to the Q&A tab, that's where you can ask questions directly of our expert presenters. We had a lot to cover today, and I know you are all going to have a lot of questions. So keep those rolling in the Q&A tab. We will do our best to answer today over live chat or in our live Q&A. And again, as always, a reminder that any questions we don't get to in our session, you will get a follow-up email after we wrap. So keep the questions rolling. All right, Docs tab right in the middle between the chat and the Q&A. That is full of wonderful resources and takeaways. Make sure you spend some time exploring. I also want to point out that we have closed captions available for you on the webinar console. So if that would enhance your webinar viewing experience, please do turn those on. Last but not least, I want to mention the wonderful Riley, who is here with us in the back end. She is available to help if you have any trouble today. Before you reach out to Riley in chat, here is your first option. Try a browser refresh. That is kind of the cure-all, right? Browser refresh. That's the have you tried turning it off and on again. So give that a shot. If the browser refresh doesn't work for you, you can try enabling light mode on your webinar console. And if that doesn't work for you, post in chat for the wonderful Riley. She is making sure everything is smooth sailing today, and she will be happy to help you out. All right, last but not least, we do have an Amazon gift card, $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here live and present at the webinar, and you do need to meet the SmartBrief terms and conditions in order to win. If you're not sure what those are, no problem. They are linked for you over in the Docs tab, so you can find them waiting for you there. All right, my friends. Well, that was a lot of information very quickly, and I think it is time to get into our session. I'm very excited to introduce our two wonderful presenters. Here with us today, we have John Bellows, Senior Director of Product Management at Salesforce, and Stefan Mohap, Senior Director of Product Management at Copado. Now, I am very excited to introduce both of them. They are waiting in the wings. So without any further ado, let's get our speakers on out here. All right. Well, I've got my wonderful presenters on out here with me. We are ready to get rolling on this exciting conversation. And I want to start. I know we did sort of the names and the titles, and those are really great, but there's so much more to dig into with our wonderful experts. And so I want to introduce them with a little bit more depth. And I'm going to start out, John. I'm going to put you in the hot seat to kick things off. John is a senior director of product management at Salesforce for developer experience. Now, John, you are bringing a wide range, an extensive range of experience in Salesforce DevOps. You were instrumental in advancing Salesforce developer platform capabilities, including DevOps Center and DevOps testing. I know, and I've heard from your team, you are the forefront of evolving testing and development practices on the Salesforce platform. You are the guy, John. You are focusing on developer tools that are driving innovation across the Salesforce ecosystem. That is a lot to be excited about. John, welcome. Very excited to have you here with us.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Well, and John, we got a lot to dig into today, but I'm gonna kick you a question right off the bat. We're just gonna warm things up and get rolling here. Salesforce and Copado, you've been working together really closely together in order to help teams deliver and with a real focus on both speed and quality. And that's not always easy to do both of those things at once, right? So I'm wondering if I could ask you to share a little bit more about what makes this particular partnership so valuable and from your expert perspective
Mm.
there and why you see testing as such an exciting area of evolution on the Salesforce platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental part of the application lifecycle, really. We want our customer, our Salesforce customers, to make the most out of the Salesforce platform, right? Especially now that we introduce Agentforce. And agents are really valuable only to the degree they actually adhere to expected behavior. So testing has never been more relevant, right? We've been investing a lot in targeted testing tools to help, but we also see huge value in partner tools such as Copado Robotic testing that actually complement our more focused tools with a holistic kind of end-to-end approach.
You know, that's so important, and we're seeing more and more emphasis on that sort of holistic and end to end. So I'm really excited to hear more from you about that as we go through. But I'm also going to bring out our wonderful second presenter here with us, Stefan. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as I said earlier, Stefan, you are leading the robotic testing product line at Copado. Talk about exciting. So, Stefan, as I understand it, you have spent the last decade in and out of the world of quality assurance. And for the past 3 years, you've been really involved in helping shape Capado's testing strategy from your home base in Austria. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Austria. You are bringing that deep expertise in Salesforce quality and also in innovation. And I know that you are bringing a lot of passion into our conversation today. Stefan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much for having me, Chess.
Well, Stefan, I got a lot more questions lined up for you, but I'm gonna kick one off with you right away as well. I'm curious about your perspective. Why is this conversation right now today, especially around quality and automation, why is it so front of mind? Why is it so important? And why should the audience tune in and and what can they expect to get excited about and take away from our conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on again.
Mhm.
What makes me really excited about this today is that there's a reality out there that for many Salesforce teams out there, testing is still manual. It's
Mm.
reactive, it's disconnected. And that slows things down, it introduces risk, and it makes every release feel a little bit like a gamble. And we have AI coming into the picture, right? Accelerating everything, accelerating development. And unfortunately, we see that many teams out there are just not really ready for that type of speed, for that type of velocity. But it doesn't really have to be that way. And today, I'm hopeful that you'll learn how to shift left and embed testing into your pipeline to move at the speed of innovation without compromising trust.
Woo, that's the goal. That is a huge I love that. I love that way of putting that. And it's always that balance, right? Speed and quality. And I love that you're not asking us to compromise on either.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, so that is a great reason to be pumped up, be excited. I think you've got our audience on the edge of their seat. I know I'm on the edge of my standing mat. If I had a seat, I'd be on the edge of it. John, I'm going to kick things on back over to you because what I want to jump into is a little bit more of that Salesforce perspective when we're talking about Okay, so every Salesforce change is going to impact critical business flows, right? And without built in testing, releases might feel a little bit risky. It's a little bit of a concern. So, why do you see quality as such a core part of DevOps? And how do you see that? Stefan mentioned trust. So, how do you see that fitting in with teams building trust on the platform?
Hmm. It's not just me, right? Quality is a fundamental part of DevOps. If you think about this leading research program on DevOps called Dora, which actually originates from Google, right? It defines two pillars for DevOps: throughput, or how quickly you're actually introducing those changes, right? But also stability, which is all about the quality of those delivered changes. So DevOps is really about both and about finding the right balance that works for your organization. So it's beyond my opinion, it's beyond Salesforce's opinion. Quality is indeed a fundamental part of DevOps and something that everyone should be adhering to, right? Also, as I mentioned earlier, right, we want to our customers to make the most out of Salesforce platform, right? We want happy end users, happy Salesforce development teams, creating, delivering apps and agents that are valuable to their businesses. And it's in our best interest to empower our customers to deliver these high quality apps and agents. And what we often see is that successful Salesforce development teams go on to adopt more Salesforce technologies. They ended up building better, more integrated apps and agents. They deliver a lot more value to their end users, right? And in order to get there, they need to master DevOps.
Mm.
And we can help you to do that through the products we're going to be showing you later on.
That's right. We have some. That was a little behind the curtain. We have some demos that we're going to show you a little bit later. Stefan's very excited to walk you guys through, so stay tuned. But what I'm hearing from you, and I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, that there's really no true DevOps as we think about it without testing.
Yeah.
It's kind of that secret ingredient. It's the magic that's going to make the whole recipe work. For me, that's salt. I'm a salt addict. It is the salt that makes your recipe come to life. But I want to explore that a little bit further. So I'd like to dig in. And Stefan, maybe I can ask you to talk to us a little bit more about how testing is fitting into that picture. What is really happening to teams and to the business at large when testing is skipped, or potentially, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks in the audience that can relate to this, when it's left a little bit too late?
Yeah, this is another great question. Thank you so much, Jess. So, testing Salesforce is significantly different to testing your average SaaS application, right? Because your entire business depends on it. So it's more it's less about actually just preventing bugs, but it's more about preventing that business disruption. Just imagine a scenario where CPQ breaks, right? You're gonna have immediate downstream consequences. Your deal's gonna stall. When Service Cloud fails, you will have customer churn. And now with the AI agents in the mix, all of these risks end up stacking up and multiplying. And what we unfortunately see out there is teams are actually spending more time fixing these issues in production than doing what is really moving the business forward. They are shipping less innovation at the cost of fixing these issues. And there's a reality in testing, of course, that really goes with that whole motion. It just manual testing cannot keep up with that type of speed, especially not across the different sandboxes, across the different roles of your users. And of course, also not with the seasonal releases that Salesforce is rolling out, as well as the releases that you and your team are pushing continuously. And that's why testing is slowly becoming a C-level conversation. Trust, speed, and revenue ultimately all depend on it.
You know what I love about Stefan, you both you and John have kind of hit on this connection, and trust has been a major theme of our whole chat today. But that connection between trust and speed and revenue, and all of them being in one conversation rather than sort of seeing them as different entities or different silos. And I think that's a really important point that you're bringing home for us, and really emphasizes why this is so important. We talked why do we care? We started with that at the beginning of our session, and I think that is becoming very clear how important this is. But John, the good news here, the bright light, is that teams don't have to do this all on their own, right? There's help, there's support, and Copado is offering enterprise DevOps at scale. It's huge, And Salesforce has also been investing in their own foundational ALM tools like DevOps Center and DevOps testing. And where I think this is, and what I'd like to ask you to explore a little bit is that's really going to give teams a structured, and I mentioned scalable, that scalable comes up over and over again, way to release with confidence. So really bringing home that confidence to the folks in our audience today. I'm wondering, John, if I can ask you to walk us through a little bit more how Salesforce sees those tools that we've just kind of explored a little bit, helping the folks in our audience here integrate quality and maintaining speed.
Sounds great to me. Let me just get this started, and let me introduce you to our team at Coral Cloud Resorts here, right? So let me start with Rebecca. Rebecca's been a Salesforce admin in the ecosystem for a while. She's very comfortable with all sorts of low-code flows we have on our platform. We have Benjamin. Benjamin is a pro code developer. He kind of lives in the IDE, in the code builder, that kind of thing. And Raju is a very seasoned release manager within Salesforce ecosystem. He has worked in a number of other companies, and he's kind of now bringing all of those ALM best practices into the world of Coral Cloud Resorts. So Coral Cloud Resort, they're growing. It's going to be Rebecca, Benjamin. Maybe in the future they're going to have other people, and they need to think about what that actually means in terms of adhering to best practices. Our recommendation, and what we've been talking about already for a number of years, is this concept which we call Salesforce ALM, which is no more than a set of best practices for you to think about how you are going to adhere to the various steps that you see here and ensure they are uh, empowered with the right set of tools and automation, right? So imagine this, you're starting with an idea to build a new app. So you go there to your kind of plan stage. You're going to use maybe our low code or pro code tools to build your application. And then you most definitely want to be testing, right? And testing typically means that your changes are going to flow in a certain way, like across a number of different stages. Automation, manual testing thing takes place over there. Those changes get released into ultimately your production environment, and then you're going to monitor and see how our users are actually using and just keep improving, introducing new features, introducing new capabilities, and so on, right? And what we've done to actually start to implement some of these best practices and giving you the tools to deliver them is basically DevOps Center. So DevOps Center has this idea of projects whereby people come together. So people like Raju and Rebecca and Benjamin coming together to deliver a change or a product or a feature, right? And the concept of pipelines, whereby you have multiple different stages in which a change flows from left to right up until the point it gets to production, right? Work items are those changes that get promoted all the way to prod, and ultimately the integration with source control to give you that single source of truth and maintain that consistency, that governance that is quite critical as part of ALM. This means that suddenly this team is now empowered to be able to track every single change that flows into their production environment from anywhere, from a number of different projects, from a number of different orgs, and that gives the team much more confidence in terms of releasing features and doing so at speed. And because we have this test stage right in the middle, which is so important that we're discussing in depth today, we are also releasing with confidence, right? So let me touch on a few things, right? Now that we've introduced Agentforce, some people might think that maybe some of these principles actually need to evolve, or maybe they're not quite relevant anymore because AI. Well, actually, Agentforce and everything related with ALM is more relevant than ever, right? You still need to have a process by which you introduce changes into a production environment. You still need to have a single source of truth by which you are able to compare and see where those changes are actually coming from and who introduced them, right? And be able to do that level of auditing. You still need to have the right set of tools to actually release those capabilities into production. You need to have the right environments for development and testing purposes, and you need to have the right means to bring these teams together, collaborate, do peer reviews, and wherever possible to leverage automation so you can still accelerate even though you're trying to deliver agents very quickly, right? So in this world, what we want to do is basically start to empower these teams to build faster yet high quality apps, right, and agents through a combination of pro code and low code tools. And with that, I'm going to walk you through a few of those tools that are available to you today, starting with Agentforce for developers. This is kind of our flagship developer experience pro code product, right? This has seen huge adoption since we introduced it, right? If you look at some of the metrics there on the bottom left, you'll see that at some point earlier last year we had around 23,000 AI generated lines of code that were accepted by the developers on a given month, right? In February. From that point onwards, we are now up to over 15 million lines of code that have been generated and accepted by our developers, which is really quite cool to see. Over 45,000 monthly active users using Agentforce for developers. And the big thing that I wanted to discuss here today is that these screenshots are actually not the screenshots of what you might see these days in Agentforce for developers, because they're actually something quite cool that I'm about to introduce to you, which is Dev Agent. Now, you're going to hear all about Dev Agent at Dreamforce, which is coming up in 3 or so weeks. We introduced Dev Agent already today, available as a developer preview, and this means that you suddenly have the ability within Agentforce for developers to actually use MCP tools. Now, this is quite powerful because then suddenly your agent can do a lot more than just generate code or generate tests, which is primarily what people were using Agentforce for developers for. Now it can actually generate code, yes, but also scaffold entire apps, scaffold entire agents, invoke tools from the CLI, invoke DevOps processes, invoke code analyzer to scan your code, even scanning generated code to ensure it adheres to best practices. So this is quite a cool thing. We're very much looking forward to hearing your feedback. So Benjamin is now empowered to really accelerate like never before in terms of how it delivers apps and agents and code as part of its development. In addition to that, let me just quickly touch on Colonizer. So Colonizer is currently running on version 5 that we announced earlier this year. Over 500 rules for code quality across security, across performance, across scalability, um, across a number of different Salesforce languages. So Apex and LWC and JavaScript, even metadata, right? So take a look. It's entirely free, such as Agentforce for developers, and you can use it today. Importantly, as I mentioned, it's also going to be available as a set of MCP tools that the agent will be able to invoke automatically to scan your code for best practices. Also available directly in DevOps testing, so you can actually automatically run code analyzer. Also available as a GitHub action, and available in both the CLI and the IDE. Now, for Rebecca, if she wants to build agents using a low-code experience, Agent Builder is where she wants to go. So this is an entirely low-code experience to build agents, where she can go. She can actually access a portfolio of different actions that she can use to create agents. She can kind of on the fly test how the agent is performing and responding to different utterances. And that's quite cool. But beyond that, she actually can use Agentforce Testing Center to check that agents are performing as expected. So you'll see there that Agentforce Testing Center is actually able to generate tests against itself in a way, or tests for Agentforce agents. It will generate a whole bunch of addresses. You can also create your own. And then it will check whether the agent is reacting with the expected topic, with expected action, whether it's providing the right response. You can also add some custom, what we call evals on top of this to make sure that the agent is hitting all the right checkboxes before you are okay to deploy them confidently into your production environment. So this is all quite cool and helping you really get much more comfortable with agents, right? Now beyond that, more generically, Rebecca is also empowered with the X Inspector. And the X Inspector today basically allows you to just see which changes have taken place, say in your sandbox or maybe your scratch right? So the X Inspector is this little bar that you see at the top when interacting with those environments. There's a little kind of hamburger you can click through and see this change management screen where you can see all of those changes. But importantly, we're introducing a few new things at Dreamforce, right? Um, the first one is the ability for you to actually select those changes and commit them directly into DevOps Center from the change management screen within the X Inspector. So that's point number one. But point number two, especially for those of you that might be more familiar with change sets or and still are not quite ready to fully evolve into the world of DevOps Center or maybe a commercial tool like Copado, we are giving you the ability to do some simpler stuff, like the ability to select, again, your changes and deploy them to the next org in your environment. And importantly, you will be able to do so with not just metadata, but you're going to be able to migrate data as well in that same operation. This is quite important if you have configuration data. So maybe you have one of many App Exchange partners apps that actually use custom objects as configuration data. You just want to be able to move that configuration across. Examples could be, business rules that are implemented as records within those objects. They can be product catalogs, that kind of thing. It's quite important for you to also have that ability to move configuration data across. The ability to do org-to-org deployment is going to be available as a beta around Dreamforce, and we have a dev preview specifically for the data component. And again, we're very much looking forward to that feedback. So that's it for Rebecca. Let's move on to the world of release management with DevOps Center. So as I mentioned, within DevOps Center is kind of our recommended foundational tool for running DevOps on the Salesforce platform, and it will give you this set of capabilities around creating pipelines, managing your work items, identifying uh, parts of the process whereby you need additional approvals, which you can easily configure through things such as GitHub, for instance, connecting to version control with, again, GitHub and Bitbucket, all done through a low-code interface, right? And this is all quite cool, but what we wanted to do, what we introduced earlier this year, was the ability for you to actually run tests directly integrated into the DevOps Center pipeline, right? So what we wanted to do is give you the ability to have much more assurance uh, upon which you can use to deliver those changes to your environment. Like, so imagine the idea of being able to implement quality gates to ensure that your changes have meet your criteria, that all the tests have passed, or maybe that you were able to identify certain severity levels for the tests that you're running, that you want to ensure that are always passing before you allow certain things to flow into production. With DevOps testing, we're basically building a new data model on top of DevOps Center that allows you to have this concept of test suites and test different testing tools, the ability to see unified results across a range of different tools, and run it automatically whenever changes are introduced to your DevOps pipeline. So DevOps testing is basically effectively a test management tool that aggregates both Salesforce tools such as Salesforce Code Analyzer or Agentforce Testing Center or skill tests with a number of commercial tools such as Copado Robotic testing. So this again is something that we're continuing to evolve. The important thing that for you to bear in mind is actually something I'm going to just quickly click through here, is that not only can you use DevOps testing to actually add an additional level of trust to your agents by not only running a testing center, but also running code analyzer against the agent metadata and the associated Apex action and so on. But in winter 26 or in our Dreamforce release, we're going to give you the ability to actually run Apex unit tests and flow tests directly from DevOps testing as well, which will give you a much more comprehensive suite of tests to run. But beyond that, because this is the beginning of the story, right? You can most definitely use our partner tools, again, such as Copado Robotic Testing. We'll see an example of that later, to actually much more thoroughly test agents, because you're now in the world of end-to-end testing, maybe interacting with different systems, and just being able to actually test the agent as if you were a user actually going through the Salesforce user interface and so on. So I'm quite excited to see that demo later on. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it over to you.
That was so much. That was some really great information, John. I was really rooting for Benjamin and Rebecca. I like it. I was with them. I'm invested in their journey. No, John, that's incredible. And I love a lot of what you painted today. We're seeing where Salesforce is already and has been obviously for a long time, just stepping up the options, the tools that are available for application lifecycle management, and also where you're going. There's so many cool things on the roadmap, and I know that you're teasing us a little bit. We've got stuff
Yeah,
coming.
it's really the beginning, because at Dreamforce you're going to see some really cool stuff that I'm not even allowed to talk about just yet.
Sean's just like dangling the
Mhm.
the sparkly carrots.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, so everyone go to Dreamforce and stay tuned and wait. Winter. It sounds like there's some stuff coming up in winter, 2026. We can be excited about. It takes a lot to get me excited about winter, John, but that feels I can get on board with that. Steven, I want to pull you into the conversation because I know I can see your excitement building as John goes through all this as well. And I want to hear from you. So talk to us a little bit more about how Copado fits into this wonderful sparkly picture. I think that there's a lot of folks in our audience, and I'm seeing this coming in from the questions that they're relating to what we've been going through today. we're seeing questions and comments coming in. Testing matters to the folks here with us today, but where it seems like the holdup or the obstacle is in figuring out how to actually get started. I think a lot of times we end up sort of spinning our wheels because it feels really big and we don't know how to jump in. So I'm wondering, Stefan, if I can ask you to help address some of these questions here today and help the folks out in the audience. What is your best advice for how a team, maybe at the early stages of their testing journey, can get over that initial paralysis and jump in? Where should they get started?
Absolutely. Well, I want to get us started by setting a bit of a baseline, right?
Mm,
We mentioned a bit earlier, there's teams out there that are doing most of their testing manually. Now, Copado is obviously here to find a better, more reliable, more sustainable way forward with automation. But the reality, unfortunately, is that for most teams, either you test your most important workflows manually or you invest in automation, right? It's one or the other, usually with the world that we're in, with all the constrained resources and so on. Now, at Copado, we have a slightly different approach. Robotic testing is not just a test automation platform. It's what I like to call an all-around quality platform for Salesforce. And that means that we support teams wherever they are on their testing journey and wherever their process is. And what's quite special about this is if you're an early adopter of testing, right, you do your testing manually, right? This is what you're good at. This is what has worked for you so far. But robotic testing, while you're doing your manual testing, is actually creating the automation for you in the background. This is all powered by Copado Explorer, which we're going to have a chance to take a look at in just a minute here. But then there's also Test Agent, super powerful. Think of it as your AI-powered Salesforce QA experts. For example, it can turn your user stories and requirements into ready-to-run tests in a few minutes. It understands your objects, your flows, and it can even help you produce meaningful defect reports that your developers will actually use. And slowly but surely, once teams become more advanced, they get to run all of their tests in parallel without any additional cost and utilize our flexible script editor that especially the seasoned testers out there absolutely love. Now, I want to turn it over and talk a little bit about how robotic testing accelerates the entire testing lifecycle. What makes this so powerful is that it's not just about one individual, one user type, one persona, or even one team. It's designed in such a way so that everyone who touches Salesforce can get to own their share of quality. That's really important because ultimately it takes a village, right, to run a Salesforce environment properly. So let's start. Usually there is some form of exploratory testing, right? That your admins, your developers, they are exploring new flows. And with us, robotic testing captures every single click, every interaction during that test. Then there's usually regression testing, right? Testers can define, like John mentioned, automatic quality gates that trigger existing regression tests to get that fast feedback and make sure that nothing got broken that previously worked, right? That's our biggest concern in testing. But then there's also, you launch new features, right? You want to automate your tests for those new features. Now with robotic testing, anyone, testers, admins, developers, can spin up new automated tests in minutes. And here's where the Copado advantage sits. This is a fast track because as you have been performing your manual test, robotic testing has been keeping track. And now you get to very simply convert all of your tests into automated tests and then have the robots actually handle the heavy lifting. They're going to be the ones to execute your regression tests as often as you'd like to get you that instant feedback and to help your developers reproduce those defects. And ultimately, it's also super important that you give your business users a chance to validate the flows they really care about. They want to be able to provide their approval, their seal of approval for those new business processes, right? That's really important for adoption as well. And with this process, the result ultimately becomes stronger quality, that faster feedback that's so important in speeding up development teams, and a completely auditable test record, including all the steps that were performed. And that's testing that finally works for everyone. And really, this is all about Copado Explorer. This is why our users love it so much. No matter your role, whether you're a tester, developer, or a business user, there's a way to make Explorer part of your day-to-day. I was just recently talking to our finance team, for example. They're getting a ton of value out of Explorer. And there's another cherry on top, right? Explorer is also a great entry point. Maybe your team is not ready for full-blown automation, right? Maybe you don't have the time or you don't have the team, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that we support you from the very beginning of your testing journey and allow you with Explorer to create tests, capture findings, report bugs, and really get you started on that journey without adding any friction. And then our solution will grow with you when you're ready for more. Now, this was quite a bit of talking, so let's move into an actual demo now. And what I have here today for you is a functional review. This is the object in Salesforce where everything comes together. This is where you collaborate. You have your test steps listed here, your insight. This also has an environment associated with it, which means that you're going to be automatically signed in to your target system under test, into the org that you want to test. No more username and password stored in Excel sheets. We don't want none of that. That's not very secure as well. And now we are starting the review and we are automatically signed into our target system. And now we get to do what we all know to do, right? We're just using our mouse and keyboard and we're interacting with the application. We have a small little widget with us here, which is actually keeping track of every single click and every single action. So you can see I'm scrolling through the items here in this list. And we're just exploring the application. Now, having a special look at the Agentforce agent that's running in our Coral Cloud environment here. And for this, we're navigating to the customer-facing side of this demo example. And we're starting to interact with the agent here. We're asking it a question to a request for a booking, right? Pretty straightforward. It's not responding for some reason. I'm sending another prompt, right? Not very patient with it. But there's something wrong here. It's not responding at all. So what I get to do is I get to put a red box here, right? And I get to simply annotate what's not working for me as a tester, right? In this case, I'm putting the agent is not responding. And of course, Explorer, keeping track of everything I did. Now, for the purposes of this demo, this is good enough for us now, obviously just a demo scenario. But what we get from doing this with Explorer is so powerful. You see that list of steps that we just performed, right? Fully auditable, screenshots, video evidence. And now we get to report this potential defect that we found with a fully pre-prepared description of what went wrong. And we can submit it using the defect management system of our choice, like Jira, for example. And the most important part, we bring it back full circle because we now associated that finding that you just made with the functional review object from where we initially started our exploration. This is really key because that's gonna be what gives you that collaboration, right? Multiple users really coming together to co-own quality. This is what gets me personally really exciting. Moving on now, we've been very much focused on kind of the early stage of the testing lifecycle, so to speak, with users that are sort of getting started with testing and with Explorer. But what I want to emphasize here is that with robotic testing, you get a complete Salesforce testing platform. It has everything you and your team need to test Salesforce and beyond. Yes, it is specifically designed for Salesforce while supporting these super important end-to-end testing scenarios across any UI, any API, and even mobile devices. John is probably getting tired of me saying end-to-end testing. This is our second webinar now in 2 weeks of me
No,
hammering home.
I'm not tired. Keep going.
John's like, yeah, more of that.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. It's super important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. It's like you want to test your business processes from the perspective of your users experiencing them, right? And that's why we also support the metadata API, of course. But we've also got a layer of super smart element identification, so your tests won't break with changes. And another benefit is, I mentioned earlier, you get to run an unlimited number of tests at the same time without any additional cost. And the result is a testing platform that's scalable, reliable, and tailored to how Salesforce teams really work. Now, talking about a complete platform, we also need to talk about the benefits that our customers are seeing. And one of my favorite success stories is a leading American telecommunications provider. In just 6 months, this team scaled from 400 test scenarios to more than 2,500 automated scenarios with amazing results, like an, a decrease of the defect seen for each individual feature by 85%, while increasing their release frequency by 75%. So much more quality, higher quality, while getting faster with their releases. And this story is really not an exception. This is a common pattern that we see across our customer base. And that really happens when testing shifts from being a bottleneck to becoming a real accelerator, right? That's when teams really see the value. That's when teams start to move faster, start to build tests before they actually build their code, and they can just blaze through their sprints.
Oh, I love this. Stefan, that's so exciting. You know, one of the coolest thing about what you just said is you gave us this incredible example and then said, but that's not a one-off. You're not just showing us the one bright, shiny example. This is the pattern that you're seeing over and over again. Somebody able to achieve these really, truly significant results. That's huge. And I was taking notes as you were going through your demo, and one of my notes just says, "This is so easy," because it's just like you've got this wonderful user experience that you're walking us through, and I think what you've done through this is paint a picture of not just how easy and simple that you can put this together, but how truly mission critical testing is. And I think what we started this last question to you, Stefan, was for someone that's spinning their wheels. What you've done is paint the picture not just of how we actually take that first step, but why it's so important to take that first step. And it isn't just a Copado story or just a Salesforce story. We've got this whole wonderful partnership creating these opportunities for folks in our audience. Which, Stefan, so what I want to ask you and maybe dig in a little bit more is from maybe where I'm standing, what I see is Salesforce and Copado are really in lockstep. You've got this wonderful shared vision, the partnership. You and John doing all your webinars together. You guys are an example of this incredible partnership, and I can feel that passion and that connection coming from both of you from these teams. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the story of your partnership and how we see that coming to life and in bright technicolor?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John and his team have been absolutely fantastic so far, right? And a great proof point for this is how both Salesforce and Copado really think alike when it comes to DevOps, right? That's the most important thing. Here at Copado, we bring DevOps automation to support every stage of that lifecycle, right? It's about plan, build, test, release, and operate. And customers trust us to deliver these Salesforce deployments with confidence through our end-to-end platform. And that's whether they're building agents, flows, apps, prompts. They know they get to shape the future of Salesforce with AI, with security and trust at the core, right? Just repeating it again, it's about planning smarter, building faster, testing continuously, and releasing safely while operating with full visibility. And I just want to take it back to a few minutes ago, right? John, you had a slide up that was somewhat similar, right? Showing the DevOps loop as well.
Yeah. A lot of inspiration for us all there, right? Using the same infinity loop.
That's right. And if you were able to see, John had a very similar description for these stages, right? So 4 out of the 5 stages are actually share the same name. That's because at the end of the day, we are all aligned to the same DevOps lifecycle. And the way we see it is that these solutions really complement each other, right? Copado helps organizations at these different maturity levels to really scale DevOps automation. And DevOps Center provides a great foundation directly from Salesforce. And today we're super excited, right, to be here to come together and to really talk about this integration between DevOps Center and Copado Robotic Testing, since we've actually had it available since TDX of this year, right? So, John, over to you again. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Can you tell us a bit more about how these two solutions work together?
Sure, sure, sure. And I think you had a little diagram, right, Stefan? Yeah, there we go. So, you know, in this example here, so imagine I have two sandboxes, right? And they're being used to create a few different work items, which are changes or maybe features within the world of DevOps Center, right? That I want to deliver to my production org. But in order to get there, these work items actually need to flow to the DevOps Center pipeline, which is a number of different orgs along the way. Right? Now, the goal is to take them from the left-hand side to the integration org that's sitting there on the right-hand side of the diagram, which is what we call a promotion in DevOps Center. Promotion is basically kind of merge of the source control branches and the actual deployment into the target org, right? But before we do that, we want to ensure that these work items or these features that we're creating, right, they meet our quality criteria. So what we've done right there in the middle, as you see there, is to add DevOps testing. So we've configured it to automatically run Code Analyzer and Copado Robotic testing whenever a work item is marked for review. Right? So in addition, we configure the quality gate that requires all tests that are marked as 31, 32, 33 to pass. So if you take the example of Code Analyzer, for instance, if Code Analyzer detects some low priority issues in your code, maybe there's a lack of documentation, it's a low severity issue, it would not block your code from being promoted to integration. However, if a Copado robotic testing end-to-end test fails, and that has been marked as a severity 1, 2, or 3 in DevOps testing, right, that promotion is going to be blocked until you resolve the issue. So you need to go back, fix the issue, run Copado robotic testing again, that test must pass, and then we unblock the quality gate and you're able to go through. That's it, Stefan.
So what we've really seen here, right, is the value of bringing together DevOps and testing, right? Automation to speed things up, faster release cycles to keep the innovation moving, and most importantly, reduced risk, right? I think we all want teams that can deliver with confidence. That's such a powerful statement. But now, instead of talking about it, I think it's time that we show you how this actually looks like in action, because our audience is really eager, I would imagine. So, without further ado, I want to take us into the demo here, right? And what I want to start with is the beginning of the journey here in DevOps Center. And we will open the work item that Rebecca and Benjamin, that John mentioned earlier, have been working on. You see, Benjamin successfully committed his changes, and the work item is now in the state in progress. Let's go ahead and now create a review. Notice that we immediately get a notification showing the change request has been created. And now actually a few actions are being triggered, including Code Analyzer. And after a short wait, we can check and validate the results produced by Code Analyzer. Within DevOps testing, we can also now go and configure test providers, which is going to come up in just a second here. By clicking on New, we can walk through the wizard to set up a new test provider. Here we can see this is already configured so that the providers are Agentforce Testing Center, Apex Unit Test, and Copado Robotic Testing for DevOps Center. And these test providers are now triggered during different stage assignments. As we can see here, the current work item is in the in review stage. And now let's validate which actions are triggered during the stage. Let's take a closer look at the test suites assigned to this stage assignment. Now, let's take a closer look at the results after a test suite has been executed. Here you see the overall execution results, and as you can see, it's all green, all your tests passed. And we also get some more detailed execution results as well. This detailed report gives us an overview of all the test cases. This is a URL, by the way, pointing to Copado Robotic testing. And you can see all the tests that were executed along with that all-important video evidence, right? So you want to have everything traceable. You want to be able to share those tests with your stakeholders, as well as your developers, right? If something goes wrong, they're going to be interested in seeing this. And during the video, you can, of course, observe how we, or better say, the robot is interacting with the Agentforce agent here and running those tests, which is always really cool, in my opinion, right? When you get to see a robot interact with an agent. Next, we're going to take a look at the editor, right? This is where you can build your code. You can edit your tests as well. And we can use the live testing window to get that instant feedback to debug your existing tests or even add new ones. And here on the left, we can see the test cases. First test case we'll have a look at is the one that checks for similarity. This test case, again, interacts with the Coral Cloud agent to request a specific activity and then verifies its similarity. Now, this is part of a library that supports testing the Agentforce AI. It's very specifically made for this. And for the similarity check, we are giving the evaluation mechanism a string that is actually going to be compared against the agent response. And what we're expecting here is, sure, I can help with that. First, I will need to verify your details, right? This is the response that we're waiting for. Now, if we execute this in the live testing window, you can see immediately robot starts interacting with the agent. And then we put the prompt there, right? We say, I want to book the aqua fitness experience. And the agent comes back saying, hey, I need to verify your details first, which is exactly what we were expecting. Now, the AI judge is actually comparing the response against the expected and reports back a similarity score of 0.75 in this case, which means that 75% matching, which is exactly our baseline. So this test is passing. Now I want to move on to the second test, which validates the faithfulness, another important AI metric. The purpose of this test case is to make sure that Agentforce recognizes the user based on their email, right? This is data available in the system. So in this scenario, what we are waiting for, or what the context actually is we want the agent to say, great, I found your details, Sophia Rodriguez, upon providing Sophia's email address. So again, you can see the robot coming into the environment, interacting with the live testing window, with the Agentforce agent at real time, and providing that response. And now we, the AI judge, is evaluating the response against the faithfulness. And yes, the name was properly recognized based on the email address, resulting in a 75% match, right? It's not black or white because it's no longer typical regression testing. Agent responses can vary, but it's good enough for us in this particular context. Now I want to go ahead and run another test, right? Ultimately, this is all about end-to-end testing, really. So we want to see that if we take this a step further, is the agent also creating that object in the background that we want it to create? Like that's the ultimate validation for an Agentforce flow, right? And we can see that yes, after booking the experience, the agent has created it successfully, and we can verify that in Salesforce by looking at the name of the contact as well as the ID and whatever else we deem a necessary indicator of a successful booking. And what's really exciting about this is you get to switch between all the different parts of your business process, right? This can go from an SAP to your Salesforce to a Agentforce experience somewhere hosted on a website. And then you can come back and validate your data on your local storage if you want it to be that way, right? So it's really about end-to-end business process testing.
You said John's favorite words again. That was
Yeah,
good.
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Stefan, that was so cool to see live in action, and thank you so much for walking us through that. Okay, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that we are in the final 5 6 minutes of our webinar, 7 if I'm really pushing, if I'm really feeling a little bad today, which we'll go a little flexible. But I really want to sneak in just a few more questions for you guys. So I'm going to challenge you guys to a little bit of a speed round to wrap us up. How's that feel?
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I
Exciting.
like it.
That's good.
What I want to do is transition a little bit into kind of the look ahead and the where we're going, right? Which, of course, that we can't have a conversation about the way forward without digging in a little bit more into AI. And we've talked a lot about automations and scalability. So we've got this wonderful dynamic partnership here with us today. And obviously you guys are really creating a lot of those innovative things together. So as we look at AI as just the beginning and innovation moving very quickly, I want to talk about how organizations can build testing strategies that will actually evolve along with the pace of change with the platform. So John, I'm going to ask you to kick us off the speed round for us. Your team right now in this moment is building the developer experience for the agentic era. You are doing it. You are the forefront. So
Mhm.
what should organizations be preparing for? What should they have on their list as AI becomes more and more central to the Salesforce experience?
Well, it has never been more important than to have a solid foundation in place in the first place, right? Because it's true that in the AI era, there's a lot of things that are changing. Our ALM kind of toolkit is changing. Our set of capabilities within the Salesforce platform are changing, but the ALM principles they remain the same. You still need a test, right? So the question is now how you're going to come up with the right balance between allowing your company and your users to deliver these apps and agents faster while ensuring that you do so with the right quality, right? What we know for this is that more and more end users can actually start to build stuff through the likes of vibe coding, through the likes of AI based workflows where they can actually start to create their prototypes themselves and taking them back to IT for actually being further developed. But and that's all quite cool. But fundamentally, the problem is really the one we've been discussing today, which is how you can have the appropriate test strategy, how you can have the appropriate tools, the appropriate resourcing to support this new world of AI generated apps and agents that we starting to live in, right? And you cannot afford for QA to be a bottleneck to your organization being able to deliver innovation, right? So there's a lot you should be doing around testing. Partners such as Copado can definitely help here. And again, go to Dreamforce, learn all about what we're doing there in terms of various tools across our kind of build, test, deploy, foundational stages. There's a ton of exciting announcements there. So a lot that I'd love for you to guys listen to.
And
Lots to look forward
say
to.
hi to John and I when you're at
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dreamforce.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
come, come hang out with John. Yeah, you guys are definitely giving us a good reason to go check out Dreamforce. Stefan, I'm going to give you our final speed round question here. I want to hear from you on this as well. So, can you give us I know this is a big question to ask you to cram in here in our final minutes, but can you talk to us about how you are ensuring Capado's testing platform is evolving along with the Salesforce innovation pace and along with the sort of global pace of innovation, especially when we're looking at AI.
Absolutely. Well, the way we think about it is this, right? Salesforce is moving incredibly fast. You have new
Mhm.
clouds, new data capabilities. Now the shift with Agentforce and AI. And really, to keep up, Copado has to be right there on the edge of innovation. And that's exactly where we like to be, right? That's where we're comfortable. We are really pushing the boundaries, not only on how AI is tested, but also on how we can leverage AI to make testing and the whole process a lot smarter and faster. And we're not doing this in a vacuum either. We are tightly aligned with John and his team at Salesforce. So we understand where our shared customers are headed, and we get to adjust our roadmap targets to really meet those needs, right? And that's why we've been able to stay in lockstep with Salesforce as much as we have, especially as John and team expands into more of these AI powered experience. And I'm really happy. I see it today as a great proof point for the work that we've been doing together. And I'm very happy about having been there from the start of this journey, right, John? It's been one
Very
and a half
much.
years ago since we started this conversation. Now having
Yeah, yeah,
everything ready feels amazing.
definitely, definitely. And we're looking forward to doing more stuff with you guys and helping our customers.
Absolutely.
Well, I love that. I hope one of those things you guys are doing in the future is coming back for another webinar because there's clearly lots more to dig into here. I do want to call out that there are so many questions coming in from the audience, and I'm so sorry, my friends, that we are right at the end of time. So we're gonna have to skip our live Q&A today. But what we're gonna do is everyone out there, so that you know, if you asked a question we didn't get to you, we are going to send them to the team. So you will get a response back from Copado, from Salesforce, and you will get a chance to get those answers. So keep getting your questions in and stay tuned. You'll get answers. Another great way to get answers right away, John, Dreamforce, right? Come talk to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll be there. I'll be there. Busy
Come
schedule,
in.
but find me at the end of a number of different sessions. Just search for my name or Stefan's name there, and you'll see some stuff.
I love that. And Stefan, we've got some links in the docs tab so folks can learn a little bit more. What's your favorite learn more action?
Well, absolutely. Check us out on copado.com
Okay.
or visit us on the App Exchange, right? We have our DevOps Center integration piece on the App Exchange, and we'll also make sure to put those links in the chat for you, so you can go ahead and check us out.
Yeah, we want to make sure you guys can get more information because we crammed a lot in into the last hour. John and Stefan, I truly, it's such a wonderful experience to get to connect with folks that are not only passionate about the solutions they're bringing, but about that partnership and that kind of better together story, really truly meaning that to your core. So I want to thank both of you for joining us today and for being a part of this conversation. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jess,
Thank you
and
so
thank
much
you,
for having
Stefan.
us. Thank
Yeah.
you, John.
All right. Well, and I just want to echo again because Sandra, I see your comment in the chat there, saying awesome, great chat, love that. And also Sandra was echoing, hoping to get that answer back to our questions, and that is exactly what will happen. So we're going to make sure all of your questions sent to the teams. As I said, you will get responses back. So stay tuned. I know that we kind of had to rush through at the end because here we are right at time. But what a wonderful conversation. I didn't want to cut that short at all because there was so much to get into. What I do want to do before I let you guys go, before you head out, a couple last quick pieces of business here. One, remember to visit the docs tab. Stefan was just talking about the links, and I think Stefan said you wanted us to drop in chat, but you know what? They're in the docs tab for you. So what I'm going to do is just send you over there. So hop over to the docs tab, click on that link on that resource center there and learn a little bit more about Copado. I would also recommend, I saw a few of you saying, hey, I want to get this demo. Book a demo with Copado. Book a demo right now and take that opportunity to have that experience tailored to what you need. Get into the demo environment with one of their experts. So make sure you've got that booked. Again, all of that linked through that resource center in the docs tab there. So go check that out. I do also want to remind you all that we have a prize giveaway. I'm sure nobody forgot. We have a $250 Amazon gift card that we'll be giving away. As I do that, Riley is going to open up a survey. So we have a survey for all of you. We would love to know, what do you think? How did the webinar hit you? Did we get you the information that you needed in the right time and manner? So please do take a second and fill that out. While you're doing that, our $250 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live and present with us at the webinar. And that special someone is Jeff Tice of North Carolina. Jeff Tice of North Carolina. Congratulations to you, Jeff. And we will follow up with you after we wrap our session today, which is right now. All right. So with that, on behalf of the Smart Brief team, I want to once again thank Salesforce and their wonderful partner Copado for making this entire webinar possible, especially to our speakers here with us today, Stefan and John. You have both given us so much to think about. A really fascinating conversation. Really, as I was just saying, the sort of passion and energy that you brought to every piece of this discussion was palpable and pulled us all along with you. So truly enjoyable experience. And on that note, my biggest high fives and thank yous always go to all of you here in the audience because you make space in your days to come and participate in these conversations. You post questions, you post in the chat, you get interactive with us, and you bring that energy and spirit of engagement. And that is how we learn the most from these experiences. I'm hoping that you're walking away feeling like you have that practical, that actionable pathway forward to be able to scale testing from where you are today to where you want to go as an organization. That opportunity for change and evolution is always so exciting to get into. I can't wait to see where all of you go from here. I hope that I get to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.